You know, I always thought I was one of the lucky ones. I had the dream life, the devoted wife, the comfortable home, the routine that felt safe. It wasn't a fairy tale, sure, but it was stable, and stability was something I valued more than anything. If someone had told me that my world would come crashing down in the span of a single evening, I would have laughed in their face. But life, it turns out, has a cruel sense of humor. It started innocently enough. My wife, Lauren, had a work trip scheduled for the weekend, a conference in Chicago. Nothing out of the ordinary. Lauren worked in marketing, and these trips happened every few months. She loved the travel, the networking, the fancy hotel rooms. At least, that's what she always told me. I never questioned it. Why would I? We'd been married for 8 years, and while the passion had faded, I thought we had something real. A partnership. A bond built on trust. I even helped her pack. Watched as she folded her blouses neatly, tucked her heels into a small travel bag, and zipped up her suitcase with that satisfied little smile of hers. She kissed me goodbye at the door, told me she'd call when she landed, and off she went, leaving behind nothing but the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. That should have been the end of it. I should have gone about my weekend, maybe had a few beers with my buddy Greg, caught up on some TV shows, and waited for Lauren's return on Sunday. But fate had other plans. A few hours after she left, I got a notification on my phone. My security system had detected movement in the living room. At first, I thought it was a glitch. It happens sometimes when the sunlight shifts through the blinds, or when our cat, Oliver, decides to do his nightly zoom eyes. But then another notification popped up. Person detected. Living room. That was odd. Lauren was supposed to be in the air. Curious, but not yet alarmed, I opened the security app and pulled up the live feed. And that's when my stomach dropped. There she was. Lauren. Standing in our living room. But she wasn't alone. A man stood next to her. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that smug confidence that made me instantly hate him. He wasn't just standing there, either. He had his hands on her waist. He was kissing her neck. And Lauren, my wife, the woman who had just kissed me goodbye hours ago, was laughing. My ears started ringing. My body felt like it had been yanked into an ice-cold bath. I blinked, hoping I was seeing things, that maybe this was some bizarre misunderstanding. But then he pulled her closer, whispered something into her ear, and she moaned. I don't know how long I sat there, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. This wasn't just some random guy. He was comfortable, familiar. And Lauren? She wasn't resisting. She wasn't even hesitating. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to be wrong. I needed to be wrong. But when she grabbed his hand and led him toward the staircase, the same staircase that led to our bedroom, I felt something inside me snap. I could have called her. I could have texted. But I didn't. I just sat there, watching as the woman I loved disappeared upstairs with another man. And the worst part? She wasn't supposed to be there. She was supposed to be on a damn work trip. And yet, there she was, fucking someone else in our home, in our bed, while I watched from my phone like some pathetic fool. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing through every possibility, every excuse, every desperate explanation that could make this something, anything other than what it was. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I had the wrong idea. Maybe. Then the moans started. Loud. Unapologetic. Lauren's moans. Something inside me shattered. I don't remember how long I sat there, staring at the screen, my fingers gripping my phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. It felt like my body had shut down, like my brain refused to acknowledge what my eyes were seeing. My wife, Lauren, the woman who had kissed me goodbye just hours ago, the woman who was supposed to be in Chicago for a work trip, was in our home, in our bedroom, in our bed, with another man. And I wasn't just imagining it. I wasn't misinterpreting anything. There was no room for doubt. The way she moved, the way she let him touch her, the way she arched her back as she let out those moans that used to be just for me, it was all real. It was happening. And I was witnessing it like some sick voyeur who had no idea his life had just crumbled around him. I don't know what part of me snapped first. Maybe it was the rage, boiling up from somewhere deep inside me, a fire so intense I could barely breathe. Maybe it was the devastation, the gut-wrenching realization that the woman I had trusted with everything, my heart, my future, my goddamn soul, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Or maybe it was something colder, something more calculating, the need to fully understand how deep this deception ran. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't some impulsive mistake. Lauren hadn't gotten drunk at a bar and made one bad decision. No. This was planned. This was calculated. She had looked me in the eye, packed her damn suitcase, kissed me goodbye, and walked out that door fully intending to come back and fuck another man in our home. My mind raced, trying to piece together every lie, every excuse she had fed me over the past few months. The sudden work trips. The late-night meetings. The way she had started pulling away, turning down sex with vague complaints of being too tired or too stressed. The time she had been glued to her phone, tilting the screen away from me like she was hiding something. How long had this been going on? Was this the first time, or had she been bringing him here while I was at work, while I was running errands, while I was out doing anything but watching our security cameras? And worse, was he the only one? A sickening thought crept into my head, one that I didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't ignore. Was this even the first man? Had I been living in blissful ignorance while my wife turned our home into her personal cheating ground? I forced myself to take a deep breath, to not let the tidal wave of emotions consume me completely. I needed clarity, proof, evidence, because the one thing I knew for certain in that moment was that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. If Lauren thought she could play me for a fool, if she thought she could lie to my face and continue living in my house like nothing had changed, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. Without thinking, I pressed the record button on the security app, saving the footage. Every second of it. The way she laughed as he pulled her against him. The way she bit her lip as she led him upstairs. The way her hands were all over him like she couldn't wait to get him into our bed. My bed. The bed where she and I had shared years of intimacy, whispered about our future, talked about starting a family one day. It made me physically ill to think about how many times I had laid there, completely unaware that she was desecrating everything we had built together. I kept watching, even when I wanted to look away. I needed to know. I needed to burn every detail into my mind so that when she inevitably tried to gaslight me, when she tried to cry and tell me it was a mistake, or it didn't mean anything, I would have the truth staring me in the face. There would be no denying it. No rewriting the narrative. Minutes passed, then an hour. The rage had settled into something different, something colder, more methodical. I wasn't just heartbroken. I wasn't just furious. I was ready. Ready to make sure Lauren faced the full consequences of her choices. Ready to take back my dignity. I wasn't the kind of man who could just pretend this hadn't happened, who could go to bed next to her knowing what she had done. I wasn't about to let this betrayal become another story of a guy getting walked all over by his cheating wife while she smiled and carried on with her life like nothing had happened. Not a fucking chance. By the time the moaning stopped and the two of them emerged from the bedroom, I had a plan. My hands were still shaking, my blood still boiling, but my mind was clear. I saved the footage to multiple devices, backed it up in the cloud, and sent it to an email account she didn't know about. Then I grabbed my keys, shoved my phone into my pocket, and headed for the door. I wasn't going to barge in there, fist swinging. No, that would be too easy for her. It would make me look like the crazed, jealous husband, the irrational one. That wasn't how I was going to play this. I was going to be smart. I was going to destroy her the way she had destroyed me. As I pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Landed. Super tired. Going straight to the hotel. Love you. Face-blowing kiss. I nearly laughed at the audacity. This woman had just spent the last 2 hours fucking another man in our home, in our bed, and here she was, still spinning the lie, still covering her tracks like she had it all figured out. She had no idea what was coming. I didn't reply. Instead, I drove. I didn't even know where I was going at first, only that I couldn't sit in that house, in that driveway, knowing what had just happened inside. I needed space to think, to plan my next move. I considered going to Greg's place. He was the only friend I had who would get it, who wouldn't tell me to calm down or talk to her first. But I wasn't ready to talk to anyone yet. I stopped at a gas station, went inside, and grabbed a bottle of water I didn't even really want. As I stood at the register, my mind kept replaying that image, Lauren laughing, touching him, moaning for him. The sheer comfort she had with him. Like this wasn't new. Like it was routine. That's what sent another wave of fury through me. The ease. The familiarity. This wasn't a one-time thing. She had done this before. She had done this many times before. I clenched my jaw, paid for the water, and walked back to my car. I had been a good husband. I had been loyal. Faithful. I had given Lauren everything. And she had repaid me with this. She had thrown away our marriage like it meant nothing. But now? Now, I was in control. And I was going to make sure she regretted every single fucking second of it. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, parked in a dark corner of an empty lot, staring at the security footage on my phone, watching it over and over like some kind of masochist who couldn't look away from his own downfall. Every time I replayed it, the anger built in my chest like a pressure cooker, threatening to explode. I had thought I knew betrayal. I had imagined scenarios where Lauren might one day break my trust, but none of them came close to the reality unfolding in front of me. She hadn't just cheated, she had plotted, deceived, manipulated. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a drunken lapse in judgment or some pathetic emotional affair that spiraled out of control. This was calculated, planned. And the worst part? She was good at it. The text she had sent me landed. Super tired. Going straight to the hotel. Love you. Face-blowing kiss. That was the kind of lie that only came from practice. She had covered her tracks so well that if it weren't for that one little slip-up, the motion sensor going off while I was home, she would have gotten away with it again. And that's when it hit me. How long had she been doing this? Because there was no way this was the first time. She had been too comfortable, too at ease. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment mistake. No, this was habit. This was routine. I thought back over the past few months, every work trip, every late night at the office, every moment where she had seemed distant, distracted, pulling away. I had been so fucking blind. I had helped her pack for this trip. I had kissed her goodbye. I had told her to have a great time. And the whole time, she had already planned exactly how she was going to spend her weekend, and it had nothing to do with business meetings or marketing conferences. She had planned to fuck another man in my bed. I wanted to go home. I wanted to walk through that front door, drag her ass out of my house, and make her look me in the eye while I played the footage in front of her. I wanted to see her face when she realized she wasn't in control anymore, that I knew everything. But I forced myself to stop. No, that's exactly what she'd expect, some big, emotional reaction. Some dramatic confrontation where she could cry, spin her bullshit, play the victim, and somehow turn this around on me. I had seen enough of these situations on Reddit, on forums, in real life. I knew how this worked. The moment I confronted her, she'd go into damage control mode. She'd cry. She'd beg. She'd make excuses. Or worse, she'd get angry, act offended, turn it around on me, say I had been neglecting her, say it was my fault. She'd rewrite the story so that in the end, she wasn't the villain. I was. No, I wasn't going to give her that chance. If she wanted to be a lying, cheating bitch, she was going to suffer for it. She was going to lose everything, and she wasn't going to see it coming. I started planning. The first thing I did was make sure I had everything saved. I wasn't just talking about the security footage. I needed evidence. I didn't just want to catch her in the act. I wanted to nail her to the wall so that when it was time, she couldn't weasel her way out of it. I went home that night and dug through everything. I accessed our shared cloud storage, our phone records, her emails. I even pulled up our bank statements. It didn't take long before I found more proof. Hotel charges on nights when she had claimed to be working late. Uber receipts to addresses I didn't recognize. Expensive lingerie purchases that I had never seen her wear. Gifts. Charges at high-end restaurants where she had never taken me. And text messages, dozens of them, deleted but still retrievable through our synced devices. Flirty, disgusting messages with him. And now I had a name. Derek. Who the fuck was Derek? I searched his number, and it didn't take long to put the pieces together. He wasn't some random hookup. No, that would have been too easy. He was her coworker. Her friend. The same guy she had casually mentioned in passing before. The one who was so great at his job. The one she had laughed about one night over dinner, saying he was such a clown, always cracking jokes at the office. Yeah, a real fucking comedian. And he had been fucking my wife. My hands were shaking as I stared at the messages. They weren't just talking about sex. They had a whole damn relationship. Private jokes. Plans for the future. I love yous. Fucking I love yous. My vision blurred as I read one of the messages from just 2 days ago. Derek. God. I wish we didn't have to hide. I hate sneaking around like this. Lauren. I know, baby. Soon. I promise. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. I felt sick. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch in the dark, replaying every moment, every lie, every time she had looked me in the face and told me she loved me while she was planning a future with someone else behind my back. I wanted to destroy her. I wanted to wake her up right then and there and throw her out of the house with nothing but the clothes on her back. But I forced myself to wait. Because the longer I waited, the better this would be. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Step 1. Play dumb. If she wanted to lie, I'd let her. I'd pretend I didn't know a damn thing. I'd smile. I'd ask about her trip. I'd act like the clueless husband she thought I was. Let her dig herself deeper. Step 2. Talk to a lawyer. First thing Monday morning, I was going to see a divorce attorney. I wasn't just going to leave her. I was going to leave her with nothing. I wanted every legal advantage possible before she even saw it coming. Step 3. Gather everything. I needed more than just screenshots. I needed hard proof. Evidence that would make sure she couldn't twist the narrative when it all came crashing down. Step 4. Confront her. But only when I was ready. And when I did, I was going to make sure she regretted every single choice that led her to this moment. Lauren thought she was smart. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger. But she had underestimated me. And by the time this was over, she was going to wish she had never fucking met me. By the time I pulled back into my driveway, my mind was running like a machine, methodical and ruthless, dissecting every possible angle of how this was going to play out. The old me, the one who trusted Lauren, who believed in our marriage, who thought we were partners, was gone. I had been replaced by someone colder, someone who no longer cared about explanations or apologies. I wasn't interested in hearing whatever bullshit excuse she'd come up with to justify what I had seen with my own eyes. I wasn't going to scream or beg or ask her why. The why didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was making sure that when this was over, she was left with absolutely nothing. I parked the car, sat there for a few moments, and took a deep breath. I needed to go inside and act normal. That was the most important part of my plan. She couldn't suspect a thing. If she even had an inkling that I knew, she'd start damage control. She'd delete messages, make up excuses, rewrite history to make herself look like the victim. That's how people like her operated. They didn't just cheat, they manipulated. They twisted the truth so well that by the time they were done, you weren't even sure what reality was anymore. I had seen it happen to other men, and I refused to be one of them. As I stepped through the door, the house was quiet, eerily so. It still smelled like him, and I had to swallow back the immediate urge to start throwing things. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and took a slow sip, listening for any sign of movement upstairs. Nothing. I checked the security app again, saw that the house had been empty for over an hour, and realized Lauren must have left after her little fuck session. I had a brief moment of panic, wondering if she had left town again, if I had missed my window to execute my plan, but then my phone vibrated in my pocket. Lauren, hey, babe. Just landed. Super exhausted. Gonna head straight to the hotel and crash. Love you so much. Face-blowing kiss. I almost laughed. She was still keeping up the lie, still spinning her little web like she hadn't just spent the last few hours getting railed in our bed. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I might have even believed her. That was the terrifying part, how easily she could lie. How effortless it was for her to deceive me. But that was fine. Let her think she was still in control. Let her think I was some clueless idiot who believed every word she said. She had no idea that she was walking straight into a trap. I spent the rest of the evening going through everything. I backed up all the security footage onto multiple devices, printed out copies of the bank statements, and took screenshots of every text message, every Uber ride, every single piece of evidence I could find. Then, I started going through her stuff. I wasn't just looking for proof, I was looking for leverage. And it didn't take long before I hit the jackpot. Tucked away in the back of her closet, in a shoebox beneath a pile of old clothes, was a stack of letters. Handwritten. From him. I sat down on the edge of the bed, flipping through them one by one, my stomach turning with every word. Lauren, I can't stop thinking about last night. The way you look at me, the way you let me have you, it's like nothing I've ever felt before. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. Sneaking around, pretending like you're still his. I want you to be mine. Completely. Tell me you love me again. Tell me I'm the only one. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. It was bad enough knowing she was fucking him, but this was a full-blown relationship. He wasn't just some side piece to fulfill her physical needs. He thought they were in love. He thought she was leaving me for him. And maybe she was. Maybe that was what she meant when she texted him soon. Maybe they were already making plans behind my back, laughing at me, thinking I had no idea. I set the letters down and took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Good. Let them think they've won. Because when I was done, they would both regret every second of this. The next morning, I woke up early, more clear-headed than I had been in weeks. I got dressed, grabbed the folder full of evidence, and drove straight to the best divorce attorney in town. I had done my research the night before, made sure I was hiring the most ruthless lawyer available. I wasn't interested in fairness or compromise. I wanted to take everything. When I walked into the office, the receptionist smiled politely. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," I said, setting the folder on the desk. "But I need to see someone today. It's urgent." It must have been something in my voice, or maybe she was just used to seeing men like me, men who had just found out their entire marriage was a lie, because she nodded and gestured for me to take a seat. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Michael Sanderson, ESQ, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. "So," he said, lacing his fingers together, "tell me everything." And I did. I laid it all out: the security footage, the text messages, the bank statements, the letters. I told him about how she had pretended to go on a work trip, how she had been cheating right under my nose, how she had planned to leave me for another man. When I was finished, he nodded slowly. "All right," he said, flipping through the paperwork. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we file immediately. You serve her the papers before she even sees it coming. No warnings. No discussions. Just boom, divorce. Second, you get her out of the house. It's in your name, right?" I nodded. "Good. That makes it easier. We'll hit her with an at-fault divorce, use the adultery as leverage to make sure she gets nothing. No alimony. No financial settlement. If she wants to run off with her boy toy, she can do it without a dime of your money." I exhaled, feeling something I hadn't felt since I saw that security footage. Relief. "Now," Michael continued, tapping his pen against the desk, "the only thing left is how you want to handle telling her." I thought about it for a long moment. I could have gone the simple route, had her served while she was at work, let her walk through the door and find all her shit packed up and waiting for her on the lawn. But that felt too easy. Too impersonal. No, she had gone out of her way to humiliate me, to make me feel like a fool. I wanted to return the favor. "I have an idea," I said, leaning forward. "And it's going to be brutal." Michael smirked. "I like the way you think." As I drove home that afternoon, everything was finally falling into place. Tonight, Lauren would come home, expecting to kiss me, expecting to sleep next to me, expecting to keep living her double life. But tonight, everything would change. She had no idea what was coming. The house was quiet when I got home, the kind of stillness that settles in before a storm. I sat in the living room, hands steepled, watching the clock tick forward minute by minute, waiting for Lauren to walk through that door, completely unaware that her entire world was about to shatter. I had thought about this moment over and over, rehearsed how it would go, how I would keep my composure, how I would resist the urge to scream at her, demand answers, make her feel even a fraction of the pain she had put me through. But in the end, I knew that silence would hurt her more than rage ever could. Screaming would give her something to fight against, an opening to twist the narrative, to paint herself as the victim. But cold detachment? That would terrify her. At exactly 7:12 p.m., I heard the familiar hum of her car pulling into the driveway. My pulse remained steady. My mind was clear. I didn't even flinch when the front door swung open and Lauren stepped inside, her face lighting up in that perfectly rehearsed smile. "Hey, babe," she said, dropping her bag by the door. "God, I'm exhausted. That flight was brutal." She yawned, stretching like she had actually just spent hours on a plane instead of getting railed in my bed by her side piece. It was almost impressive how flawless her performance was. If I didn't know better, I would have believed her. But I did know better. And that changed everything. I leaned back in my chair, watching her carefully, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable. She hesitated, her hand still resting on her bag, eyes scanning my face for some sign that something was off. She was good at lying, but she had never been good at reading me. "What?" she asked, forcing a laugh. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I exhaled slowly, stood up, and walked over to the coffee table, where the thick manila envelope was waiting. Without a word, I picked it up and tossed it onto the couch beside her. "Open it," I said, my voice calm, even. Lauren frowned, confused but still playing the role of the innocent wife. She hesitated, and I could see the first flicker of something in her eyes, unease. But she reached for the envelope anyway, peeling back the flap and pulling out the first set of photos. I watched as her eyes flicked over the images, her and Derek in the living room, his hands all over her, the two of them tangled together in bed, the proof of what she had done laid out in glossy, high-definition clarity. Her entire body stiffened. The blood drained from her face, and for the first time since she walked through that door, she had nothing to say. I let the silence drag on, let her squirm, let her feel the weight of the truth pressing down on her. Then, finally, she looked up at me, her mouth opening and closing, searching desperately for the right words, for any lie she could cling to, any excuse that might soften the inevitable. Don't. I cut her off, my voice cold. Don't say a fucking word. I don't want to hear it. Lauren blinked, clearly thrown off by my tone. She was expecting anger, maybe even tears, something she could work with, something she could manipulate. She wasn't expecting this. She wasn't expecting me to be so calm. Listen, she tried again, but I wasn't interested in whatever garbage was about to spill from her mouth. You've been served, I interrupted, nodding toward the divorce papers in the folder. At-fault divorce. Adultery. I have all the proof I need. You're not getting a damn thing from me, Lauren. No alimony. No settlement. Nothing. The panic finally broke through her carefully constructed mask. Wait. Let's just talk about this, she stammered, reaching for my hand. It's not what you think, I swear. I made a mistake. We can work through this. I laughed. A hollow, humorless sound. A mistake. I repeated. Lauren, a mistake is forgetting to pick up the dry cleaning. A mistake is accidentally calling someone by the wrong name. A mistake isn't lying to my face, telling me you're in Chicago for work, and then fucking another man in our house. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And you made it. Over and over again. Her breathing was uneven now, her hands shaking as she flipped through the photos, like she was trying to find something that would discredit them, something she could latch onto to convince herself this wasn't happening. How did you? Doesn't matter, I said, cutting her off again. What matters is that it's over. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no sadness, just the cold satisfaction of justice. Please, she whispered, voice breaking. Please, I love you. I don't want to lose you. I tilted my head slightly, studying her, almost amused at the sheer audacity of it. Lauren, you lost me the moment you let him touch you. She cried. She begged. She swore up and down that she didn't mean for any of it to happen, that she still loved me, that we could work through this if I just gave her a chance. But I didn't care. I didn't care about her excuses or her crocodile tears or the way she suddenly remembered all the love she supposedly had for me now that she had been caught. I had spent weeks drowning in my own misery, letting the pain of her betrayal consume me. But sitting there, watching her unravel, I realized something. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't the pathetic, heartbroken husband she thought I was. I was free, and I had won. She had nowhere to go. I had made sure of that. The house. Mine. The money. Mine. Every financial advantage she thought she had. Gone. Derek wasn't going to support her. He had a wife of his own, a family, a career that would implode if his affair came to light. I had already sent copies of the evidence to his wife. Lauren had destroyed everything for a man who was about to drop her the second things got messy. And the look on her face when she realized that? Priceless. By the end of the night, she was gone. I watched from the porch as she threw her things into the trunk of her car, tears streaming down her face, still begging, still pleading, still trying to fix something that was far beyond repair. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. The papers were signed. The damage was done. And I was finally free. As her car disappeared down the street, I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. This wasn't how I had ever imagined my life turning out. I had married Lauren thinking she was my forever. But sometimes, the person you think you're going to spend your life with turns out to be nothing more than a lesson. And I had learned mine well. I didn't cry that night. I didn't mourn what was lost. Instead, I poured myself a drink, sat back in my chair, and smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, my future finally belonged to me.